In my experience, 95% of success is based on how clear you are about the goal that you're aiming at, how clear you are about the measure that you're going to use, or how clear you are with regard to the activity that you're going to engage in to achieve a particular goal.
Hey there! It's hard to find good help for many people today. With so much information, it's easy to feel overwhelmed and that you don't have any way to sift through the noise. Luckily, motivational speakers can help. Subscribe to us for endless motivation.
Once upon a time, there was a nuclear power plant that was suffering severe mechanical difficulties. And this power plant, power generation was down by about 40%. I had a nuclear engineer in one of my courses. He said, based on what you told me, the plant would be losing about $1.2 to $1.3 million a day in electricity generation if it was off 40%. So that's kind of the numbers that the plant management was dealing with, and they couldn't find it. They did everything possible to find, why is the plant slowing down? It was just running like sludge, if you like. And finally, they bit the bullet, they got a hold of their ego, and they called MIT and had them sent down one of the foremost nuclear power plant experts in the country, MIT and Massachusetts Institute of Technology. He came down, drove out to the plant, put on a white smock, nice gentleman, professorial, picked up a clipboard, and he began walking around this massive control room, taking notes and looking at the gauges and the barometers and amp meters and so on, and making calculations. And after about 2 days of this, afternoon of the second day, he said, that's the problem. And he got up in a chair and he took a big black marker out of his pocket and he put a big black X on the gauge. He said, that's it. He said, replace this apparatus and the whole plant will be back up to full power. Thank you very much. He put down his clipboard, took off his smock, thanked them for their time, drove back to the airport, caught his plane back to MIT. Engineering crew was waiting like runners at the gate for his judgment. Once he gave his judgment, wham, they all went together, they stripped it all down, and lo and behold, deep within this apparatus was a major mechanical malfunction that was not detectable from the outside. So they immediately went to work, they replaced it with all new equipment, put it all back together again, and assembled it, and then threw the switches, and the whole plant went up to full power. And they were so happy, they were high-fiving and cheering and patting each other on the back and so on. They were all happy. They're walking around with smiles so wide you'd think they'd swallowed a banana sideways. And they're all happy like this for another week until they received a bill from the consultant for services rendered, $10,000. Well, the general plant manager calls in the senior maintenance engineer and says, look at that. The guy comes out here, stands around for a couple of days, writes one X on one gauge, and sends us a bill for $10,000. Geez, that's almost as bad as dentistry. So he said, yeah, the guy comes out here and sees that's as much as we make in a month or two. Yeah, I mean, with a minute's worth of work, climbs up on the ladder, writes an extra, and says $10,000. I mean, that's outrageous. Yeah, we should make him itemize his account. Yeah, let's make him itemize his account. So the plant manager wrote back and said, dear sir, with all due respect, all you did was write one X on one gauge. $10,000 seems like an awful lot of money for that little amount of work. Could you please itemize your account in a little more detail? So about 10 days later, they got a new bill back. It said, for writing X on gauge, $1. For knowing which gauge to write X on, $9,999. In other words, it wasn't the amount of physical labor, and this certainly applies to your profession, it wasn't the amount of physical labor, it's the amount of brain work that went into doing this, the precision brain work. And that introduced me to what we call the X factor. Now, the X factor is one of the most important things I ever learned. The X factor is the key to your success. The X factor is what's going to make you rich. It's made me and a whole lot of other people rich. The X factor is what is going to enable you to double your income and double your time off. Now, the X factor, sometimes we call this the focal point, is to determine where you are going to write the X in each area of your life. What is your X factor? Where do you create what is called the point of intensity? And what we know is that an X factor can be one of three things. It can be a goal. You can have a clear goal. Let's say call this the focal point. Or it can be a measure. It can be a number, or it can be an activity. Now, in building our business, it has to be one of the three, but sometimes it can be a goal, double our personal income. But in any one of these three cases, or all of them, the critical word is clarity. In my experience, 95% of success is based on how clear you are about the goal that you're aiming at, how clear you are about the measure that you're going to use, or how clear you are with regard to the activity that you're going to engage in to achieve a particular goal. So always think of those, and what are they? Now, when we look at successful people, we find that successful people have focal points in the 4 critical areas of life. And the first critical area of life that I need to talk about is what is called, it has to do with income. This is really important to understand, is the average person who works for a living thinks about their income in terms of how much they earn in a year or a month. That's because when they first got a job, they were paid by the year and the month. This is a $25,000 a year job, get $2,100 a month, and so on. So people at the very beginning, first impression is they think in terms of annual income. Maybe they think in terms of how much they get per month. They're, of course, focused on how much they get every 2 weeks and so on, but that's how they think. Now, if you think like that, it's very easy to waste time, because what the heck, you're getting paid by the year. So if you waste time on Monday, catch up on Tuesday. You don't do it on Tuesday, Wednesday's still there. Wednesday, hump day. Then there's Thursday, then there's thank God it's Friday. What the heck, you haven't got it done by Friday, just punt it into next week. And this becomes a habit. It becomes a habit. So in the world of work today, if you're running your own practice, 50% of working time is wasted in general. It's wasted mostly with idle chit-chat with coworkers, chit-chat, 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 that has nothing whatever to do with the work. It's wasted in personal business, personal phone calls, extended lunches, extended coffee breaks, reading the paper, surfing the internet, personal business, going shopping during the daytime. It's the most amazing darn thing. 50% of working time is wasted. Now, if working time is wasted, it's not the fault of the employee, because they think in terms of annual income. What does it matter? They'll get caught up later. It's usually the fault of the boss, because the boss has not organized the work so that people are working all the time. They've enabled the work to be so sloppy that people can kill a lot of time. If people have time to sit around and idly chit-chat, it means your practice isn't busy enough or you have too many people. So just keep cutting back and loading up the work, and surprise, surprise, people will take it on. So what top people think about is not annual, but hourly. They think, how much do I earn per hour? And how much do I want to earn per hour? So here's what top people do. In terms of income, they think in terms of their hourly rate. And they focus on doing the things that pay them their highest hourly rate. Which brings us to a great breakthrough concept. It's called the Law of Three. And the Law of Three is the key to doubling your income. The Law of Three says that in your practice, in any field, there's only 3 things. There's only 3 things that account for 90% of your income. 3 activities. But you'll find there's only 3 things that pay you 90% of your income. If you make a list of 10 or 20 or 30 things that you do in the course of a week or a month, then you ask this question. And this is the great question, because you must help every person who is responsible to you, who answers to you, answer this question as well. The question is, if I could only do one thing all day long, what one thing would contribute the most to my practice or to my income? If I could do one thing all day long, what one thing would it be? Second, if I could only do 2 things all day long, what would be number 2? If I could only do 3 things all day long, what would be number 3? And whenever we put people in from any profession through this exercise, they're astonished to find that there's 3 things go pop, pop, pop off the list. And everything else is a support task, an enjoyable task, a complementary task, a task that can be delegated, outsourced, downsized, or eliminated altogether. And it takes tremendous discipline to do this. Once upon a time, when I started my career, I sat down at the end of the year and my tax returns were $14,400. 12 years later, I sat down and did my tax returns, and my tax returns were $1,440,000. I'd increased my income by 100 times in 12 years. And I went back and I started to look at that, and I realized that I'd used a formula which I gradually articulated into what I call the 1,000% formula. And it's very simple. It's based on the law of incremental improvement. Japanese call it the Kaizen principle, the principle of continuous betterment. It's getting a little bit better every day. So I asked the question, if you could increase your productivity, performance, and output by 0.1% per day, could you do that? Could you increase your productivity, performance, and output by 1/1000th in a day? And the answer is, of course. If you were the tiniest bit more efficient, or you worked a little bit harder on a more important task, you could become 0.1% better in a day. Well, if you did that every single day for a week, you would be 0.1% times 5. You'd be 0.5% more productive in a week. Is that possible? Of course, you would say. Anybody can become that small amount more productive. So I said, if you did that every week for 4 weeks, you'd be 2% more productive over the course of a month. If you did that every day for 13 4-week months in a year, 52 weeks, you would be 26% more productive. Is that possible? And the answer is yes, because there is a thing in success called the momentum principle. That means that once you start going, it becomes easier and easier to keep going and to go faster and faster. So, once you become 26% more productive in the course of a year, your overall output, your results, your income will go up by 26%. What happens is you start to get into the swing of it. You start to be more effective, more efficient. You get more things done. You start earlier. You work harder. You stay later. You set better priorities, and so on. So if you do this 26% each year for 10 years, you will be 1,004% better. And this is what happened to me, and it's happened to every single person I've ever worked with. Not long ago, I was in Seattle, and this young man came up to me. He's about 30. I met him when he was about 22. He was working in a used car lot in a small town outside of Portland. And his name is Chris. And he came up and he said, Mr. Tracy, he said, do you remember me? I said, yes. He's a nice guy, great personality. He said, well, you know that 1,000% formula that you taught to me many years ago? I said, well, of course I remember because I've taught it to so many people. He said, Brian, it doesn't work. I said, it doesn't work. He said, it doesn't work. I said, I've used it every single day ever since I learned it all those years ago. It doesn't work. I said, how do you mean? He smiled and he said, it doesn't take 10 years. It only took me 7. He said, today, he said, I am earning 10 times what I was earning 7 years ago. He said, I used it every day. It's absolutely amazing. He said, I'm making more money today in a week or a month than I was often making in a month or a year. He said, by using that formula. And what I did personally is I used it once, increased my income 10 times, and then I used it again and increased my income 10 times more, 100 times in 12 years. And so can you. So here's what it consists of. It's very simply this. Each morning, get up first thing, at least 2 hours before you have to be somewhere. So you can invest the first hour, what we call the golden hour, into yourself. And you invest the golden hour by reading something that is uplifting, educational, motivational, spiritual. It doesn't matter, but they say reading is to the mind as exercise is to the body. Instead of reading newspapers or magazines or watching television, what you do is you just read something that is uplifting. If you're in sales, read something in selling. If you're in spiritually oriented, read something spiritual. If you want motivation, read something motivational, but read 1 hour every morning. That will thoroughly prepare your mind for the rest of the day. One of the great speakers said that the first hour is the rudder of the day. It's called the golden hour. So you invest the golden hour in yourself. And just like if you got up in the morning and worked out for an hour, you'd be feeling great all day long. If you get up in the morning and read for an hour, you'll be feeling mentally great all day long. Step number 2 in the formula is make a list of everything you have to do that day. Sit down, make a list of everything that you have to do, plan your day in advance. Step number 3 is organize your list by priorities. Determine what's most important, what's second most important, what's third most important. Put a number next to each one. Number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. Fourth step is to start on your most important task, as we mentioned before, and work on it single-mindedly with concentration, focus, and discipline until your most important task is done, and then go to task number 2 and do the same thing. Number 5 is listen to audio programs in your car. Turn your car into a mobile classroom. Turn your car into a university on wheels. Now, a study at the University of California, USC, concluded that if you listen to educational audio programs in your car as you drive around, instead of listening to music, which we call chewing gum for the ears, if you listen to audio programs, you'll get the equivalent of almost full-time university attendance. Except for one small point, is when you go to the university, people who've graduated from universities, as I eventually did, find that about 90 or 95% of what they teach you is not practical. It's theoretical, it's true. it's enjoyable, but it's useless in the real world. However, when you select educational audio programs on sales, communication, time management, goal setting for yourself, which you can stop and start if you like, you only select things that are valuable to you in the moment. So you get even more than a university education by turning your car into a classroom on wheels. You turn your car into a mobile learning machine. Here's an interesting point, going right back to the beginning. If you were to get up and read for 60 minutes each day, you would read an average of 1 book per week. 1 book per week would be an average of 50 books a year. Now, to get a PhD at a leading university in any subject, including astrophysics, you have to read about 30 to 50 books and combine them into a dissertation. If you read 30 to 50 books in your field in the course of a year, you get the equivalent of a doctoral degree, whether it's in selling, business, entrepreneurship, or any other field. You will, because you're reading material that's practical, have the equivalent of a dissertation in that you will have blended it into your life. You can double and triple your income simply by reading 1 hour every day. And I've taught this to thousands of people who have come back to me and said it's absolutely incredible the difference it makes in your life to begin the day by reading in your field. The second thing is, if you plan every single day in advance, I can promise you this: the very act of planning and setting priorities will increase your productivity by 25% the first day. If you were to set and concentrate on your most important task, you'd increase your productivity by another 50%. By simply reading, setting priorities, focusing on your most important task, your productivity, performance, and output will go up 100% in 1 year. If you then listen to audio programs in your car, many people have told me that that alone has increased their income 1,000% in 10 years.
If you do what other successful people do over and over again until it becomes a habit, nothing in the world can stop you from getting the same results that they do. And if you don't, nothing can help you. Now, this is a very important point to understand, is that all success skills are learnable. All practice, development, and management skills are learnable skills. All sales skills are learnable. All public relations skills are learnable. All physical, mental skills are learnable. You may not be able to play, a classical violin or dump baskets like Michael Jordan, but all business and sales and management skills are learnable skills. And so therefore you can learn any skill you need to learn in order to achieve any goal that you want. So basically you create your own life with your own thinking. Now, this is one of the hardest things for people to understand, is that their entire outer world is merely a mirror. It reflects back to them in absolute, complete accuracy what there is going on inside. Now, much of what is going on inside is conscious, some of it is unconscious, but basically it's the way we think and see ourselves and feel about ourselves on the inside that determines our external world. And if you want to change anything on the outside, you have to change things on the inside. Now, my favorite equation is this: 1-to-1 is what's going on the inside determine what's going on the outside. Now, imagine a person looks in the mirror and they don't like the way their makeup is put on, nor they don't like the look of their face, and they don't like that, and they start to pound the mirror. Pound the mirror. They go and get a hammer. I got to pound this mirror. You'd say you must be crazy. The mirror is neutral. The mirror just reflects back to you what you're presenting to it. So if you want to change what was being reflected back, you have to change what you present to the mirror. Once you understand that, by the way, you move into the top 10 or 20% of thinkers in the world.
Now, what is the next step? Number 6. Number 6 is to ask yourself 2 questions after every call or every event. These 2 are what I call the magic questions, and they will change your life. Question number 1 is right afterwards, say, what did I do right in that situation? If it's a sales call, if it's a business meeting, if it's a job application or interview, if it's a negotiation, if it's a meeting with your bank, afterwards ask yourself,
did I do right? And immediately think, and even better, write down everything that you did correctly in that meeting. Because you did a lot of good things. Even if it wasn't successful, you did a lot of things that were right. Second question you ask is, what would I do differently next time? What would I do differently next time? And then quickly write down a list of all the things that you could do to improve that situation the next time you have it. Now, this is important. Many people are of the idea that you should sit down and say, what did I do wrong? Where did I make a mistake? Where did I drop the ball? But no, what's happened, if you ask those questions, your subconscious mind will record those reviews, negative reviews, as instructions, and the next time you're in the same situation, you will make the same mistake. However, if you ask, what did I do right? And what would I do differently? Your subconscious mind records those as instructions on how to behave the next time you're in a similar situation. And you'll behave automatically in that situation. Now, the seventh part of the 1000% formula is for you to treat everyone you meet like $1 million customer. Treat everybody you work with in life as though they're the most important person in the world. Treat your customers as though they're about to buy $1 million worth of your product if they like you, and if you treat them nicely. And especially treat the members of your family. Treat your children, treat your spouse, treat your friends like they're really important people. And the wonderful thing is that the more you treat other people as if they're important, the better you feel about yourself. The more positive you feel, and of course the more positive they feel, and the more they want to work with you and be around you. This 1000% formula has been the key to success throughout history. Is you don't make quantum leaps. You don't go from zero to being rich. You don't make easy money or quick money. What you do is you go to work on yourself bit by bit, day by day, week by week, month by month, and your results are virtually guaranteed.